Awesome. Well, I know we've got 30 minutes, so perhaps it makes sense to get going. I'm really excited to talk with all of you, but before we get to intros and such, so excited to be here. Thank you everyone who has been joining. My name is Joey. I'll be kind of moderating the panel today. I'm working as a product designer over at a company called Webflow, and on the side, I do a lot of Figma education and design system work, and we are here today to talk about agency and the word of independence and agency and what both of them really mean to all of us here. We're each exploring these ideas ourselves in different ways and thought it could be a unique experience to come and talk about what the word has meant to us and how we're all kind of navigating that world. So this panel is all focused on experiences of our own and really sharing, again, what that word means to us. And we've got some wonderful people here, all friends, all know each other, and we're excited to get together and just kind of share, again, our lived experiences. So perhaps to kick things off, let's start with introductions, just to share a bit about ourselves, what we're doing, what we're into, and yeah, just anything you'd like to share. Maybe we can kick it off with Molly. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Molly. I'm the creator of UI Prep, where I teach about Figma and design systems through my newsletter, a course, and through design files that I put out there.
Thanks, Molly. Maybe I'll be the real popcorn here. How about Christine? Do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Christine, and I run an online learning platform called Mood Learning, and I teach and talk about UX, UI, and these days primarily Figma, and especially that area where design and code meet and things get interesting and difficult at the same time.
It does not take long for that to happen. Christine, so glad to have you. I'm glad you're doing it. Dan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Mall. I'm a husband and a dad and a designer and a creative director and an entrepreneur. I'm the founder of an online school for web designers called Design System University, where I teach designers and engineers how to work at scale and how to use design systems at enterprise organizations.
Dan, so good to have you. Thanks. A lot of things you're doing right there. Femke, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you so much, Joey. So I'm Femke. I'm a product designer at Gusto, and I also teach design on YouTube. I have a course all about product strategy for designers, so really helping designers level up in their career and be more strategic.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, so good to have you again. Now, as we kind of touched at the start of this, we are here to talk about agency and independence and what the two words have meant to us and what the experiences have really meant to us. And so maybe just for a first question and to kind of align ourselves or at least explore other definitions, I'd love to learn a little bit from each of you, just broadly speaking, what does the word agency mean or what has it meant as you've explored your own career? I think it's kind of interesting just to ask and explore what the thought or the notion of agency and what it means and how it's, again, influenced where you are today. So I won't go in the same order. Maybe we'll just kind of change it up to give everyone a chance to go first or last. But any volunteers or otherwise I'm happy to lead.
I can start a little bit. So when I think about agency, to me, it sort of means having independence and being in control of my career and sort of what I want to do with my skills. So I think I kind of realized early on in my career that nobody was going to care as much as I do about my own growth path and growth plan and where I want to go and take my career. And so that kind of opened my eyes to thinking, okay, what are some things I could do like by taking some initiative or being more proactive about where I want to go and what I want to do. And some of those things I did at work and my day job. Other things were side projects or things I started doing and tinkering with on the side. And I really loved how those side projects gave me the agency or the independence to try and fail different things, use them as learning opportunities, gain and grow some new skills. And over time, I think I got a bit more and more addicted to the things I was doing on the side and really enjoyed the benefits and the learnings that I was getting from them. And so over time, now years and years later, like those side projects have grown a lot. I'm still doing the day job, but also doing a lot of things on the side. And I love just having something that is mine that I can control and grow and kind of almost use as a playground for myself to challenge and push myself. So that's kind of been what agency has meant to me over the years.
That's amazing. That's such a good answer. I have so many questions as well, including like what's been really positive and what's been a little bit more difficult. But perhaps we can get into that after we share with others. Molly, do you want to kick us off next? Would love to learn more about what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think similar to Femke, I think agency really to me just means like ownership, owning what I do, how I do it, when I do it, and just kind of also fitting into my life in a way that works for me. And yeah, kind of mixing a combination of, I think a lot of like intentional action with also kind of like listening to how things are moving around you and like what the market wants from you and just kind of letting things unfold a bit organically, but then also taking like intention and action and kind of that push and pull between the two. And yeah, like Femke said, it's also just really fun. You get to kind of do what you want and do what you're drawn to and kind of steer that direction in your career and the direction you want to go and learn things that you want to be learning and want to get better in. And so just a lot of independence and ownership over what you're doing with your time and your life ultimately, because it's how you spend most of your day every day.
I think as we go to a real theme of the conversation will be time and managing time and figuring out like what time is meant to you, because in some ways agency is very freeing, right? And it allows you to really choose where your time is going and how it's spending or how it's being spent. And it'd be wonderful to hear too, as we go, just the very practical things. How are you managing that? How, Femke, you shared so much about what you're doing and how you're balancing it. And I would love to hear from Christine and Dan, perhaps a little bit more on that as well. Christine, do you want to take us next?
Yeah, so I noticed, like, especially when you came up with the topic, that how much it actually means to me. I think it's one of the main reasons why I work the way I'm working. And I also believe that it's very personal what it means to you. You could have agency in a team, in a company. For me, it is that sort of lonely wolf approach. I really like being hours and hours alone working on creating videos, which for others might be just something that they will not enjoy. So I think it's very important to know who you are, how you tick. And for me, before I was had contract work and I had was freelancing, like classic freelancing for years. And it was nice, but I always felt there was something missing. I never had this full passion I saw in my colleagues. And once I had started building my own products, I realized it was that I always felt like I was trading time for money, and that was in my head, and it just didn't feel right. And then I started building a product, and suddenly the money and the product and the time they sort of work together, but also independently. And sometimes people ask me, like, how many hours of work a day do you work? And I'm like, I don't know, like whenever I have time. And I also love it because I can fit in my family, my friends, and I can be ambitious about my work, and I can spend time with my kids, the schedule that they have, which is something that in a classic setup wasn't really possible, or at least for how I am, caused me a lot of stress because I felt I was letting people down, not being present. So that was, it's a very, very big topic for me, that way of working.
Amazing, Christine. You're doing so much good work with the courses, and it was, we're all designers here, but seeing how fast you had updated everything, based on Figma's latest conference was incredible. And so it's very clear to see that passion come through in your work. Dan, do you want to wrap us up here just by exploring what agency means to you and all the things you're doing?
Sure. For me, everything that everyone here mentioned, I very much identify with that. And then on the other hand, agency means a different thing to me as well, from my experience. I'm a word nerd. Which is usually pretty embarrassing to admit, but I figure in front of a crowd of medium users and fellow nerds, it would be welcome. So I looked it up, and I looked up the etymology of agent and agency, and it's from the Latin agentum, which means to set in motion, to drive forward, to keep in movement, to incite to action. And so like that's always kind of what it's meant to me. For me, I ran a digital agency for 10 years. And so the word agency has a different meaning in that as well. And I sort of relate it in that way too, in that I'm a representative for my clients, or was a representative for my clients. And part of my job was to set in motion things for them, in a way that benefited them too. So I really like that idea of agency is just you being able to set in motion the things that you want to set in motion, for better or worse. And I think what comes with that is the independence, the autonomy. I think that's what I'm really attracted to, which is why I never really, did well working for other people, was because I think I didn't have that agency. And now being able to do my own thing, whether that's run my own agency or create my own products or things like that, just the ability to drive forward the things that I want to drive forward, like it's fully in my control and fully in my purview. So I think that's a really powerful idea for me.
I love that. Throughout the morning, I've heard so much talk around those who are running their own publications, and really even in the last 5 minutes, hearing from all of you about how positive the experience has been and how it's really let you understand and determine where your time is going, where your energy is going, and probably bring in so much energy back that was maybe lost in other ways. But I'd love to quickly explore and ask, what has been tough? What are the things that most might not think about when it comes to creating more of that independent world of working for yourself, or creating those projects, or frankly, just, exploring the word agency as it relates to your own career? Molly, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. First, Dan, I'll admit that I also looked up the definition of agency just to be double sure. Because I also used to run a very small design agency. And I was like, oh, it means lots of client work to me. But really, it's so much broader and more positive. So I had to kind of break that definition in my own head. Yeah, pros and cons. Honestly, there's a ton of pros and cons. I think the biggest thing is, especially for, I think a lot of us, we're kind of, like Christine said, like lone wolves, where every success, but also every failure kind of lands squarely on you, which can be really rewarding and satisfying and convenient when you're working and things are going well, but can also be kind of stressful and even lonely when things maybe aren't going well. And so, yeah, I think to combat that, I think doing different collaborations and events like this, or just meeting people doing similar things, or just finding people to bounce ideas off of. That's a really huge part of what makes me enjoy it even more, is just kind of being able to do my own thing, but then also having a little bit of camaraderie with other people and we're doing similar things.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like when you're doing things on your own, it can get kind of lonely, and there's a lot of trial and error too, and what's going to work, what's not going to work well. And I've had times where I have put a lot of effort, a lot of energy into something I'm really excited about, and I think it's going to go well, and it doesn't. And so then you kind of have to rethink or try something new or change up the strategy. Those little hurdles can be challenging for sure. And figuring out a way how to push through. I think we're all really lucky in the space that we work in design, where we have a really supportive community of people designing and creating. And so that's been really helpful for me as well, to collaborate, to get feedback, to get advice from others. And so I think maybe just a reminder that you don't have to do everything alone. There are people out there who I'm sure want to help you and want to collaborate.
I found that, there's the standard stuff that you have, like the nice emails you get feel so good, but you get 10 nice emails. And we all talked about that when we met, and you get this one comment and you're like, oh, it's it really hurts. I also became so much nicer online or in support centers these days since I'm creating myself, because it's true, there is people, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, behind everything trying to do it right. So I am being much nicer. I'm not firing this is not working emails off anymore, because people, you want to solve it, and it's just much nicer if there's going to be mistakes if someone asks you the nice way. So that's, I think, the standard stuff. There is one more thing that I don't know if that's for you as well. For me, is to block out the noise and to filter what I let in and what not, especially with social media, which is such a big part, such a big chance of having a reach that you couldn't have otherwise. But I sometimes need, when I'm building courses, I really need to switch off social media, because I look at it. And it's funny, Joey, that you said, oh, you updated the courses so fast, because I saw you updating 20 hours of courses. I was literally hyperventilating, oh my God, I'm behind. And I think for me, it's a lot that it seems all so perfect when you follow people. I've been following all of you for a long time, and even the failures seem amazing on social media, So sometimes it's really important to check in, and it's really great to go to real life events and to meet people and to see that they're doing great, you know, but that they also have a bad day, that they also have a doubt, and that it's that it's normal, and that everybody has their own way, and someone is going to be really fast in one way of building things, and someone is going to be having luck at another thing. And so that's for me the biggest challenge, to take this opportunity of social media and meeting people, but not sort of having it. Sometimes it just falls all on you, this whole pressure of everybody's building stuff, you know.
I like that Fem used the phrase trial and error, because to me, everything about having your own agency or having your own agency is it's a double-edged sword. Like almost everything is a double-edged sword, right? So like I love the trial part and I hate the error part. You know, I'm not a perfectionist, but like when you do your own thing, there are tests that you have to do, you know, and there's some things that you just don't know is going to perform well. Like everything from as minuscule as a tweet, you know, you post a tweet and you're like, this is going to be a fire, and it's not. And then you post a tweet that you're like, this one's trash, and it turns out to be a banger. And
oh my gosh, all the time.
Yeah, it's so hard to estimate that kind of stuff. And I think the ability or the need to do something that serves a need for other people, but also matches the things that you like and fit your life, that's a hard thing to find. And some people get lucky and they find it right away, and they've had ways of increasing their own odds. And then some people, it takes time. You know, that's the space that I'm in right now, where I'm like, I haven't quite found the fit yet, and it's tough. And there's all sorts of things pulling at my attention and my interest, and you know, there's and all these opportunities, and like all of those things are a blessing. And they're also problems, you know, they're good problems and they're problems, you know, so it's hard to balance those things because no one's telling you how to balance them, right? You have to figure that out on your own. Should I spend time with my kids today, or should I work on this product thing? Should I take a weekend off, or should I take a weekend to work? Like nobody's telling you which ones of those things are right. So you have to decide those things, which is great, you know, and it's also a double-edged sword too.
You know, maybe on that note, any thoughts on any more thoughts on getting over that fear, or frankly just finding that balance? Because if you're out there and you're putting things that are not resonating, I'd imagine, you know, speaking personally, it's very easy to be like, I've got to double down, I've got to really pour more time into this, or I've got to figure it out, I have to make it work, whether it's a post that I'm writing that I'm struggling to articulate well, or maybe it's something I'm working on that it's just not quite right yet, that I feel proud or, you know, excited to push it out, or to publish it out. How do you not get too in your head about these things, or let them really slow you down? Because I know it can be really scary to hit that, you know, so to speak, publish button for the first time. And it only takes one or two times for things to not go well and to get in your head, at least in my experience. And so I'm curious for all of you and your experiences, how have you overcome that fear?
Can I start?
Absolutely.
There was a video that was floating around a while ago of the basketball player Dwayne Wade, and he was playing golf with Tiger Woods, and the whole like getting in your head, like I think it's valuable to get in your head. And so what Dwayne Wade was talking about was, he was talking about this basketball game where it was, I think, the finals or the semifinals, something like that, and he's at the free throw line, and what he did was he got into his own head to tell himself, last night I shot 200 of these in a row and I made all 200. So like he had to revisit that thing in his head to say, like, I've done this before, I've been here before, I'm going to sink these 2 free throws because I just shot 200 last night. And the thing that Tiger Woods said to him, and the thing that they kind of were having a conversation about, was like believing in yourself is overrated. Trust the evidence. You know, you have evidence of things that you've done before. The first time is like, well, if you don't have the evidence, well, that's okay, because usually the first time no one's watching. So if you mess up, you know, it doesn't matter because it's the first time. And then the pressure comes and builds as you get more popular, as more people are watching. But then you can rely on evidence, right? Then you can rely on, well, the last 10 times I did this, it actually turned out okay. You know, I didn't die. You know, no one punched me in the face. You know, and so maybe this time no one will punch me in the face either. So you know, I think there's a lot to it for me, relying on evidence of going like, I know this is scary, but the last 10 times I did this, I was scared too, and it turned out okay. So maybe there's a higher chance that this one will turn out okay too.
Yeah, I don't know if I can give advice better than that, but I was thinking around, like, for me, it's all about consistency, which I think is similar to like practice, right? Like doing things over and over again, continuing to show up, trying, learning as you're going. Like if you just do something once and then react and make all your future decisions based on that one time, you don't have much evidence, to Dan's point, right? To really make a good informed decision. And so I just keep going. I keep pushing. And of course, at some point, you know, you might reach a point where it's like, okay, maybe this isn't working, or I've tried this a lot of times. But I think just having a little bit of perseverance and giving yourself that opportunity to keep going and keep trying and learning and iterating every time is going to like compound over time.
Yeah, I think for me also just putting things out there more often makes me feel better ultimately, because I know if I wait a while to put something out there and then also there's like so much pressure on this one thing, it's like, well, I've had like all this time to work on it, like it better be really good to like make it worth it. And that's really stressful and it's kind of scary, like, and risky, honestly. Like maybe it does great and it was worth it, maybe not, and kind of a flop. But if you kind of put things out there, like I was saying, like more consistently, then it's kind of okay. If some things go well, some things don't, it kind of all averages out to be pretty good. And then you also just have more things to look back on and say, oh, well, these things worked, these things didn't. So I think just kind of breaking things up into smaller chunks always helps me feel better about things that I'm doing, and kind of take some of that pressure off. Because if you kind of break up small things, it's much more manageable, and also you can kind of also just track your success and how things are going, and just take the pressure off of one really big launch.
I have, it's something that I think is very tricky, and I really liked what Dan said. I find it very inspiring. And the thing that helps me is to think that I try to compare to myself to the stuff I did before. And I look at old videos, like my first video I ever published. It's so bad. I can't even, I'm sorry if you bought it. It's really bad. I took it off and I'm remaking it. And then usually I remake them and I give people better quality and stuff, and people give me feedback. And so for me, it is like, I know I'm going to find my videos horrible in the ones I'm doing today in 2 years' time. But I also know that this is good, because it means that I can keep doing what I'm doing, because I'm evolving and I'm going ahead. And it's something that I learned in art school. I had really great teachers that always told me, like, make 10 drawings, throw them away because they're going to be awful. And then the next ones are better. And so yeah, I'm trying to do that. And I love working on digital products because you can fix them. If there's an error, someone writes to you and they say, there's a mistake, and you fix it and you write everybody an email and it's done. That's why I'm print, bye-bye, never, ever again.
I think for that reason alone, I find so much fear when I'm hitting the publish button on a newsletter, because that is the one thing these days that feels so permanent out there.
Yeah.
So much of agency, as we've talked about, it involves being independent and really putting ownership on you to put something out there for others. And this is a question that's been, or a fear that has come up time and time again. But I'd love to ask all of you your thoughts on this and how you overcome it. And that's just the thought that enters your head of, why me? Or why would someone want to hear from me? Why would it, if I'm creating this course, I'm creating this post, I know this topic, but so do 100 other people. And I'd love to hear from each of you if that is a thought that's ever entered your head, how you battle it, how you kind of get over that fear again of hitting publish, knowing that it's on you and it's your voice.
Oof, that's a hard one.
A big one.
I think it's something I think about all the time, and then I think because it's easy to be your harshest critic of like, why would someone like want my opinion about something, or like, why is the way I'm doing something the best way? And so I think similar to like the pressure of like hitting that publish button, I can be kind of perfectionist, and like I know like when I'm putting out like my design file, I'm like ready to like debate every decision I make. So like it needs to be defensible. Like if someone asks me why I did something this way, like I need to have like bullet point answers and like all the pros and cons and like why I went with this option. Which ends up making me a better designer, but is like maybe a little unnecessary. But yeah, I think getting the feedback from that is, you often find that I think you think the critics are going to be harsher or just kind of question you more, but oftentimes people are just really appreciative of what you put out there. And so I think the more you put out there and the more people give you positive feedback, that they are learning from it. And so you kind of get that validation of like, oh, okay, what I did was helpful. And like, I know now I should like keep going in this direction, or keep helping people in this certain way. So I think a lot of it comes from just that outward feedback.
I think for me it is that I don't think I'm going to be the best for everyone, because there's 8 billion people in that world, and I'm sure there's people that like to learn Figma another way than I teach it. But I believe in all of those people, the way that I teach, for those people that choose to consume my courses, which I don't force them to, I can do that really well. And I've done that a long time, and I've done good quality, and I put in all the effort. And I think you can find the right crowd. It's not about you doing the perfect product. It's about you putting out a way that you would learn. Like I learn in very specific bite-sized chunks and how I do it. And there's going to be people that's right. And there's going to be people that are not going to like that. And I think, yeah, that's for me the way to tackle that.
For me, I'm very inspired by food. And one of the things I've learned in the last decade of just eating as many different foods as I can is that like you can eat kimchi, which is delicious, and then you can eat kimchi that's made by a Norwegian chef, and it's a different kind of delicious, right? It's like when people bring their perspective to the table, it is like that to me is one of the most enjoyable parts about life is just having these different perspectives. And I have a superpower, I think, from when I grew up, is that I'm a mixed kid. I'm half Pakistani and half Filipino. So when the Korean kids were sitting with the Korean kids and the black kids were sitting with the black kids, I never thought that I would sit at the half Pakistani, half Filipino table because there was nobody else like me. And I learned from an early age that like, there's no one else like me and that can be lonely, but also there's no one else like me and that can be very cool. And I think that when people do their thing, if the advice that I always give is like, don't worry about making the best thing. Just worry about doing your thing, you know, kind of like Christine and Molly are saying. If you do your thing, it's going to have a different flavor because it comes from your different experiences. And if you don't do that, the world doesn't have that. You know, you don't have any obligation to do that, but that is a thing that you can add to the world is your specific background, your specific experience, your combination of things is so unique. No one else has that. And so it might not be the best, but for someone, it might be their best. You know, and I think that's a useful and important distinction that I try to remind myself of.
Yeah, totally. I try to remind myself that, I mean, for me, like my philosophy is just teaching what I know, right? Because I'm sure that there's something that I can teach that the person next to me probably hasn't learned yet. And so instead of trying to position myself as an expert, I try to think through the lens of, what can I give? What can I give back? What can I teach? Or what is something I would have really liked to know a year ago, right? And how can I pass that knowledge on? And so just thinking from that mindset of you don't need to be an expert to have a voice. You just need to have an opinion or something to share or a learning to pass on. And I'm sure there's going to be at least one person out there who's going to really benefit from it.
Well, speaking of one person out there, we're wrapping up and we have just a few minutes left. And I'd love to learn from each of you. What is one thing that you hope people in the audience today do as a result of our conversation, especially those who might be considering a similar path or, you know, perhaps even just inspired by some of the words that were shared today. And also as you go, please feel free to share where other people can find more about what you're working on as well as we wrap up the session. Dan, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I think that to make the most of life, you have to test your edges. You have to know where your edge is. So like, what's the thing, you know, I think this is why some people run ultra marathons and some people, you know, try to dive as deep as they can in the ocean, you know, and I think that tells you something about yourself. And I think that's what agency gives you is like the ability to go like, how far can I take this right now? And in a year, if I test it again, can I take it even far? Like, have I grown in that way? So, you know, if for anybody out there that's listening that wants to see where their edges are, great. You probably have the agency to do it. Even if you don't realize you do, like consider this encouragement that you probably do, you know, maybe more than you realize. So, you know, test where your edges are. If you're in a season where you can do that, I think that's really great for humans to do. If anybody wants to hear more from me, I tweet a lot, you know, at Dan Mall. I also write on my website, danmall.com, and my newsletter. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Christine, do you want to take it next?
Yeah. So, my advice would be listen to who you are, what makes you feel comfortable, and find that environment because this is where you're naturally going to flourish. So this might be a team. You might do something with a partner. You might want to do something completely alone. And embrace your quirks. It's not only about your strengths. Sometimes your biggest asset is your quirks. So you could look at Marie Kondo being a crazy person that just tidies up all the time. Or you could see what she's done, teaching people what it makes her feel. And I think it's all about that. And it was the same for me. My stuff started because I have a reading writing disability. So I started doing lots of visual stuff. And so it might be, look at those things, not only the things you're great at. And if you want to do more, visit me at moonlearning.io. And I also have a Twitter. I'm there, but I'm usually mainly on LinkedIn. and on Medium as well. And they don't pay me to say that.
Christine, thanks. I'm so glad you were able to make it. We've got just a few more seconds, but Fem and Molly, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I can go really quickly. I think just if you have that idea that you've been noodling on for a long time and you've been really scared to take the leap, just break it down into something really small and get started. It doesn't have to be this big, giant like launch or announcement or product. What is something small that you could take as an action today? And you can find me at femke.design.
My answer is going to be similar. I think just starting small. If you have something you want to do or you're nervous about getting started, just start really small, put a few things out there, see what works, see what kind of comes back to you. And also nothing's permanent. You can easily shift directions, change course, just kind of start somewhere and you'll kind of end up somewhere where you're meant to be soon enough if you keep putting things out there. And yeah, if you want to hear more about me, Figma, and design system tips, I share a lot of tips in my newsletter, which you can find at uiprep.com. And I also tweet a lot of tips, just Molly Hellmuth.
Amazing. All, thank you so much. It was so wonderful to talk to you about this. I learned a lot and just glad to have the chance to hear each of your perspectives, speaking of. So thanks for joining us, everyone. It was so good to be here. And Femke, Christine, Dan, Molly, thank you all so much for being a part of it.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Joey.
Joey.
Thanks so much for having us. This has been great.
All right, everyone.